It's starting now. Now you live.
What's up there, Black family? This is Kevin Warden Price at Africatown Coalition. I am here with Billion Godson. We want to talk about quickly the cannabis movement and what has happened today. There was a meeting that took place today, and Billion Godson was there, so he's going to give you an update on what happened at that meeting.
So last year, 2018, the city of LA finally legalized cannabis for recreational use. With the opening of the cannabis industry here in Los Angeles for recreational use, there on paper is a program known as social equity, which was supposed to help people who were mostly affected by the war on drugs
Right.
get a fair opportunity to cash in on this multi-billion-dollar industry that they're now even projecting to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry sooner than later.
Right.
But what ended up happening last year, out of the 178 businesses that were licensed, many of those known as pre-ICOs, only 6 of those ended up being black. So as some of you may know, last year there was an Armenian business known as LA Cannabis Co. that attempted to further infiltrate our community because they already had 3 existing shops throughout our community, and they attempted to open a 4th business on Crenshaw right in the heart of Africatown. So it was brought to our attention. Our coalition, along with a group known as Protect Crenshaw and others, came together and pretty much shut the LA Cannabis Co.'s attempt to spread into Africatown down.
Right.
And out of that, Council Member Marquise Dawson, who is the council member for Council District 8, which is where Africatown is, he put in motion a citywide freeze that stopped the relocation or opening of any further cannabis businesses while they claim to look in how to further roll out the social equity program. So as weeks went by, the Department of Cannabis Regulations came with some recommendations they felt would help to roll out the social equity program. So for about the past couple of months, there have been a lot of back and forth, different meetings to get community input as to how they would implement these recommendations. One of them that we noticed right off the bat was an attempt to increase the number of businesses people could own from 3 cannabis shops, not businesses that could own, but the number of businesses that outside interests could come in and partner with. Now, with social equity, it states that people who qualify for it have to retain 51% of their businesses. And outside investors would get 49% of those businesses. Initially, it stated that outside investors could have up to 3 businesses. So one of the recommendations they tried to slide in under us was they wanted to increase that to 12 businesses. So a lot of us caught that, brought it to the attention of the Cannabis Regulation Committee, and they took that off the board. So
And that was like the meeting before this last one that we went, and we had a lot of public comment in regards to this change, from 3 licenses to 12. And one of the main reasons why that was argued as well is because they said that if that was to be passed, then a handful of people could actually control the majority of the licenses in the city. And that was, of course, unacceptable because that created a monopoly amongst a small group of wealthy people who wants to dominate the market. Okay, we'll go ahead.
So revisions were made to the recommendations by the DCR, and those came forward, and there was supposed to be a new vote by the city council today because there have been votes on these recommendations by the cannabis committee of the city council. But last night, the Empowerment Neighborhood Council for the West area had their cannabis committee meeting, and the Empowerment Council for the West area has pretty much been in the vanguard of this fight to get the social equity rolling out. So in the meeting last night, it was decided that another recommendation which said transfer ownership if social equity applicants decided at a later date to go ahead and sell their share of their business, that the partners who had 49% would get first dibs to buy that 51%. So again, this presented a threat for a monopoly for these outside entities to now buy out their partners a year or so later.
Right.
So it was decided in the meeting last night that we needed to push to have the city council to table voting on that item in specific. But other points that, were put on the table today were regarding the different regulations. There's an 11-page regulation that cannabis businesses have to conform to be approved by the LA Fire Department. And there were a few other things. So basically, the push today was to have prospective social equity applicants who have been paying for different spaces, who pretty much have everything they need to qualify. Their paperwork is like a whole list of paperwork that people are being required to present to get their cannabis businesses rolled out. So it was decided today that everyone would go in front of the city council and bring up these points. And as it came to a vote, hopefully the city council would hear and vote on different items according to how people were presenting it. So when we get there this morning, it was believed that by about 10 o'clock, the public comments would open up, and these presentations by the prospective owners would be able to be made. But when we got there, I got there a little bit after 10. They were honoring Nat King Cole. I guess March 17th will be his birthday, but the city of LA will now officially recognize it as Nat King Cole Day. So that took us a little past 11 o'clock, and then a little past 11 o'clock, they began presentations. Each council member, there's like 15 council members, made a presentation for different women honorees in regards to International Women's Month. So that took us about another hour into it. So unfortunately, a number of people who had shown up began to leave. So that became somewhat of a concern. So when they opened up public comment, I'm not sure exactly what the item was initially, but a white boy went up there and had a swastika on the back of his jacket. That created a little tension in the room amongst people of color. But he did, one of the things he spoke on was the cannabis regulations. He was pretty much against all of it, against any type of regulating of cannabis by the city. So he's basically stating they will continue their street sales of cannabis. He stated they will continue smoking it, and harassment needed to stop. So he finally sat down. Then a second white boy went up, and initially it appeared as though he had some type of mental issue, as he had a hand puppet and was kind of talking through the hand puppet. So it was somewhat amusing to people in the audience. But then he hurled off a nigger, N-I-G-G-E-R. So that instantly caught all of our attention. Then he hurled off the second nigger. So at that point, I started monitoring both the city council and the police who were present as to whether or not they were going to approach this clown. And they seemed very normal and comfortable with what he was saying. So by the time he hurled off the third nigger, I had enough. I went, approached him while he was on the mic, basically told him, he need to watch his mouth, shut up with all the niggers. And, he looked at me kind of shocked and surprised and was like, oh, what is this we have here? And was inferring me interrupting with him making his comment. So then one of the members of the LAPD who was present came and told me I couldn't interrupt him. So again, I just reminded him, you know, no more niggers were gonna be tolerated. So I kind of walked off, and then another member of the LAPD came and basically told me, you know, in there they have to honor everyone's First Amendment right, freedom of speech, blah blah blah.
Right.
And they come every week and create this type of disruption.
Right. I've been there as well with this individual, so he's a regular presence there, and I think it's a problem that they allow that to continue with this individual like that. It's a couple of them really. So what was the end result of the city council's decision?
They called off a few names to speak. There were two people before me who ended up leaving. I finally went up and spoke. After I spoke, they attempted, before we even spoke, after the two white dudes spoke, they attempted to say they were going to stop public comment and bring it back at a later time in the meeting. So, you know, people start speaking out, got a little disruptive. So they called off a couple names who were no longer present, called my name, I spoke. Then after I spoke, they stated they were going to shut down public comment.
Right.
So again, that created a disruption. So then they called about 9 more people up to speak, and once again stated they were going to move comments on that particular item at a later time. So again, what people in the audience began to feel was that this was yet one more move on behalf of the council, because at that point there were pretty much no council members present. Herb Wesson, who was the president of the council, kept walking in and out. Right. There was actually
so they've already made a decision.
Busciano, council member Watts, he was actually presiding as the president of the council at this point. And there were about 3 or 4 other council members present, but people who have been going to these meetings more regularly were informing me that they believe this was yet one more move to disrupt and not honor what those of us who qualify for social equity are recommending on how to finally roll this out. So I left, but I was informed that they actually had to table it and put it off till next week because they didn't have quorum to vote on it. So
okay, well, you know, that sounds like you know, politics as usual. Unfortunately, they're holding hostage the social equity program, and so we have another meeting coming up then next week in which can you go ahead and play some of that video while we finish this off right here. Turn it down a little bit, John. And so, you know, there's going to be another meeting next week, as Brother Billion has said. And so we'll show up at that meeting as well. We'll also give you a recap, a review of what happened during that time. And one of the things that I would just like to say is if you feel that you might fit the criteria of the social equity program, you know, if you've been convicted of a marijuana, if you have a marijuana conviction, you know, you've done time, you lived in South Central, which was all the war against black people, you know what I'm saying, war on drugs, then you more than likely qualify. So get with us. We need people who are interested in being a part of this process, because we have people who are willing to take you through the process.
And really, if you're just out here in LA, whether you're homeless, whether you out of work right now, if your children been trying to get a job in our communities, as we've been showing y'all for about the past month and a half, even in our communities right now, people cannot get jobs. So that is what makes this social equity program even more necessary. So we just need more of you to come out regardless, period. Whatever condition you're in, if you're going through any type of hardship right now, this is one of the main things we need to be fighting for. Like a lot of other fights y'all been seeing us go through, and we've been calling y'all to come support. We need people present right now, y'all, because what they're attempting to do is ignore the few of us who are left in this city. And they know this is a multi-billion-dollar program, and they're trying to put overseers in our community to regulate how this is going to happen. They're trying to put people in position who are going to be able to afford to live in LA, eat decent in LA, and keep us in a position of consumers. So even if you smoking, You know what I'm saying? One of the sisters that came out last night, she's attempting to open a lab where she will be a certified tester of what's going on, because she says she's already testing what's happening, and she said that the two biggest threats she sees right now, in addition to just the natural fungus that tends to grow on a lot of cannabis, because that's one of the main things the city is trying to direct testers to look for, just the fungus. But she said the threat she sees, some of the threats she sees is, one, the steroids that are being used by a lot of growers to get a more potent and different types of strands that they're putting in these shots with these different names.
Right.
She also said another threat that some of the growers are using are pesticides.
Right.
So she said in her own private lab right now, these are things they're finding, but she wants to get certified so she can officially bring it to the forefront. These things are harmful. That's being used in a lot of these products that are coming out these dispensaries right now. So whatever level you are on in this, or even if you just unemployed looking for work, this is something we all got to fight on, y'all. And y'all been seeing the outcomes of a lot of fights we've been fighting, how it benefits us after the fact. We're telling you once again, this is something we need y'all to get involved with us right now.
And on that note, we want to thank everybody for showing up. This is Kevin Warden Price of the Africa Town Coalition.
And Billion Gosson.
And we will be back with some more content real soon. We're definitely going to cover the next meeting as well. Anything else in closing? All right.
Black Power.
Black Power.